You know, people, we talk about forgiveness a lot. I talk about forgiveness a lot. And it's always interesting to me when people say, "Oh, I have forgiven so and so. Oh, yeah, I forgave them." And I say, "Well, okay, that's great, but are you still resentful of them? Are you still angry about what they did to you?" "Oh, yeah, but I've forgiven them." Okay, so the point is, no, you haven't. If you still have an emotional charge attached to something that someone did to you, if you still perceive yourself as a victim, if you are still angry and hurt by what they did, then regardless of the fact that you may have given lip service to forgiveness, regardless of the fact that you may have said, "Oh, I forgive you," and we can kind of act like the slate is clean and start fresh. You're not starting fresh if you still have a resentment, if you still have a bitterness, if you still have a copying an attitude about that person, if you still feel that they were mean to you and victimized you, then you still are attacking them with your judgments and your unforgiveness. Okay, so if you are angry and resentful, that's unforgiveness. That's not forgiveness. So if you still have an emotional charge attached to something somebody did to you, then you haven't really forgiven them. It's not you haven't forgiven them, you haven't forgotten. Forgive and forget, you've done neither. Okay, the only way you truly can if you truly do forget what they did, that really is proof that you've forgiven them, because it's totally off your radar. It's so Yeah. If you have anger or resentment, bitterness, harsh judgment, intolerance towards somebody who you claim to have forgiven, you haven't forgiven. You haven't done the work. You're still wanting to punish them for what they did to you. You're still perceiving yourself as a victim. And this is a mistake, because it keeps you in an emotional prison. We forgive others for our own peace of mind. We forgive others to free ourselves of the emotional burden of anger and resentment and judgment and unforgiveness. And we free ourselves when we forgive others, for they know not what they do. We free ourselves from the burden of the past, from a belief in our victimhood. We free ourselves when we forgive others. We are forgiving ourselves. When we accept others, we are accepting ourselves. When we love others, we are loving ourselves. Everything is, in a way, a projection, so that when we see evil in others, we're really just projecting the evil that we believe exists in ourselves. When we forgive and love others, we are forgiving and loving those imperfect aspects within ourselves. Okay, so projection is all about feeling good about ourselves by seeing problems in other people, but it's very short-sighted. It doesn't actually solve anything. That's why it's really helpful to recognize that when you are angry and resentful and bitter, you are actually in an attack mode. Regardless of how justified you are for being in an attack mode, you are in an attack mode. You are now being the aggressor. And this ultimately is not in your best interest. What's best is to recognize the problems in others and try to neutralize them as best you can, but don't walk around with this attitude of having to, be a social warrior, beating other people up for what they did to you, and then saying, "Oh, but I forgive you. All is good. Where it's all good. No worries." Doesn't work that way.